5 years ago, two new employees walked into the same orientation at a food distribution company outside Kansas City. They arrived within minutes of each other. They filled out the same tax forms. They enrolled in nearly identical health insurance plans. Their annual salary was almost exactly the same, just over $79,000. To everyone in the room, they looked like two people beginning the exact same financial journey. One was Daniel Foster, a 35-year-old warehouse operations manager. He loved talking about money. His phone was filled with investing podcasts, stock alerts, YouTube channels, and online forums discussing the next big opportunity. He genuinely believed that becoming wealthy was mostly about finding the right investment before everyone else. The other was Lauren Mitchell, a 33-year-old logistics planner. She rarely mentioned investing. She wasn't interested in predicting the market or following financial headlines. She simply wanted enough money to stop worrying about money someday. If you had asked their coworkers which one would quietly become wealthy over the next several years, almost everyone would have chosen Daniel. They would have been wrong. What surprised me wasn't that Lauren eventually built far more wealth. It was why. My name is Theo, and I spent months trying to understand why some completely ordinary people quietly become financially secure, while so many hardworking people never seem to get ahead. I wasn't looking for miracle investments or secret strategies. I wanted to know which wealth-building ideas actually work for normal people living normal lives. If you're interested in making smarter financial decisions, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. It helps this channel reach more people who are trying to build lasting wealth instead of chasing shortcuts. During my research, I kept hearing the same 8 strategies repeated over and over again. Friends recommended them. Financial influencers promoted them. Books praised them. Some sounded exciting, others sounded painfully boring. So instead of asking which strategy could make someone rich, I asked a different question. Which strategies are most likely to help an average American build wealth over 20 or 30 years? That small change completely changed the answer. The first strategy was chasing the next big investment. Every generation has its version of this story. Technology stocks, cryptocurrency, artificial intelligence, biotech. Whatever is rising the fastest suddenly becomes impossible to ignore. Daniel loved this game. Every few months he found another opportunity that seemed too good to miss. Each one came with convincing charts and confident predictions. Every expert sounded certain. But history tells a different story. Most people don't buy before excitement begins. They buy after everyone else is already talking about it. By then, expectations are often much higher than reality can deliver. Researchers have repeatedly found that individual investors often earn lower returns than the investments they actually own, not because the investments are bad, but because emotions lead them to buy high and sell low. Lauren almost never joined these conversations. At first, that made her seem uninterested in building wealth. Later, it became one of her greatest advantages. And surprisingly, this wasn't Daniel's biggest mistake. The second strategy was increasing your income. Unlike chasing hot investments, this one deserves far more credit than it usually receives. The math is simple. The more you earn, the more opportunities you have to save, invest, and recover from unexpected setbacks. Higher income creates options. But income alone isn't wealth. We've all met people with 6-figure salaries who still live paycheck to paycheck. We've also met school teachers, electricians, and office workers who quietly retired with impressive investment accounts. The difference usually isn't what they earned. It's what they kept. Economists often describe this as lifestyle inflation. Most people simply experience it as life getting a little nicer after every raise. A better apartment becomes a larger house. A reliable car becomes a luxury SUV. Streaming services, vacations, restaurant meals, and monthly subscriptions slowly become normal. None of these decisions feels irresponsible by itself. Together, they quietly consume every raise. Daniel received 2 promotions during the next 4 years. His income grew steadily, but so did his monthly expenses. Each raise felt like permission to upgrade something. Lauren also received raises. She rewarded herself occasionally, but most of her increased income never reached her lifestyle. Instead, it quietly strengthened her financial future. That small habit didn't look impressive. But over time, it created a gap that kept getting wider. The third strategy was simply saving money. This one surprised me the most. Almost everyone agrees that saving is responsible, and it is. Having an emergency fund is one of the smartest financial decisions anyone can make. Unexpected medical bills, car repairs, or layoffs become far less stressful when cash is available. But many people stop there. They continue adding money to savings accounts year after year because it feels safe. Safety has value, growth does too. The challenge is knowing the difference. Inflation rarely makes dramatic headlines when it's behaving normally. Instead, it quietly reduces what money can buy over long periods of time. The dollars don't disappear. Their purchasing power slowly does. Lauren built 6 months of emergency savings and then stopped adding to it. That money had one job: protect her from emergencies. Everything else began working somewhere else. Daniel, however, often moved money back into cash whenever the news became uncertain. Seeing a large bank balance gave him confidence. Emotionally, it felt like the right decision. Financially, it came with a hidden cost that he wouldn't recognize until years later. The fourth strategy was buying real estate. Few financial topics create stronger opinions. Some people believe owning a home is the greatest investment they'll ever make. Others insist renting and investing the difference is always smarter. After reading decades of housing research, I realized both sides often oversimplify the question. A home is first a place to live. Its financial value depends on what happens over many years, not just the price you pay today. Historically, homeownership has helped millions of families build wealth because each mortgage payment gradually increases ownership. But homes also require maintenance, insurance, taxes, and repairs that never appear in the original sales brochure. Lauren bought a modest house that left plenty of room in her monthly budget. Friends wondered why she didn't purchase something larger. Her answer was simple. "I'd rather own my house than let my house own me." Daniel qualified for a much larger mortgage. The bank approved it. The monthly payment looked manageable. But when insurance premiums increased, property taxes rose, and expensive repairs arrived, his budget became much tighter than he expected. Neither decision seemed dramatic at the time. Years later, the difference became impossible to ignore. But the next strategy turned out to be even more important, because it quietly separated people who built wealth from those who spent decades waiting for the perfect moment. The fifth strategy was trying to time the market. At first, it sounds completely logical. Why invest today if prices might be lower next month? Why not wait until the next correction? The problem is that the market almost never tells you when the perfect opportunity has arrived. When prices are climbing, people hesitate because everything feels too expensive. When prices are falling, people hesitate because they fear prices will fall even further. The result is surprisingly common. They wait. Months become years. Money sits on the sidelines while they search for certainty that never comes. History has shown something interesting. Some of the stock market's strongest days have occurred shortly after its worst ones. Investors who panic and leave the market often miss the recovery they were waiting for. No one consistently predicts those turning points. That isn't a criticism. It's simply reality. Daniel spent hours every week reading forecasts. One expert warned of a recession. Another predicted record highs. Each opinion sounded convincing, but together they left him doing very little. Lauren accepted something most investors struggle to accept. She didn't need to know what the market would do next month. She only needed a process she could follow for the next 20 years. That simple shift removed one of the biggest emotional traps in investing. The sixth strategy was consistent long-term investing. This was the strategy that kept appearing in almost every serious study I read. It wasn't exciting. It rarely produced headlines, but decade after decade, it quietly worked. Instead of searching for the perfect investment, people regularly invested in broadly diversified, low-cost index funds and allowed time to do most of the work. Compounding is difficult to appreciate because it starts so slowly. For years, progress feels almost invisible. Then one day, your investments begin earning more than your annual contributions. That's when people finally realize that time has become their greatest financial asset. Lauren automated her investments every payday. Whether markets were rising or falling, the money was invested before she had time to second-guess herself. She didn't need extraordinary discipline. She built a system that reduced the number of decisions she had to make. Daniel invested too, but only when he felt confident. Unfortunately, confidence usually arrived after prices had already risen. The difference between them wasn't intelligence. It was consistency. The seventh strategy was increasing your earning power. Notice the wording, not simply working longer hours. Becoming more valuable. Throughout history, People who steadily developed new skills often increased their income far more than those who simply worked harder. That might mean learning new software, earning professional certifications, changing industries, or taking on greater responsibility. These improvements rarely produce overnight success. Instead, they slowly increase the value of every hour you work. Lauren spent evenings completing certifications that made her eligible for larger projects. Within a few years, her salary increased again. Instead of spending the extra income, she invested most of it. Each raise strengthened the habits she had already built. Daniel also worked hard, but much of his extra time was spent chasing short-lived side hustles that promised quick returns. Some earned money, most didn't last. The effort wasn't wasted, but it rarely created lasting momentum. Then I reached the 8th strategy. Ironically, it wasn't about investing at all. It was about behavior. Behavioral economists have spent decades studying why intelligent people make poor financial decisions. Again and again, they reached the same conclusion. Knowledge usually isn't the biggest problem. Emotion is. Most people already know they should save consistently, avoid unnecessary debt, and invest for the long term. The real challenge is continuing those habits when fear, excitement, or uncertainty takes over. That's why the final strategy wasn't finding better investments. It was building better habits. After months of research, I realized that 5 of the 8 strategies depended heavily on predicting the future or getting unusually lucky. They sometimes produced extraordinary success, but they also produced countless disappointments. Only 3 consistently survived every question I asked. Invest consistently for the long term. Increase your earning power over time. Protect your decisions from emotion by following a simple, repeatable plan. None of these approaches sounds glamorous. None promises overnight wealth. Yet together, they have quietly helped millions of ordinary people achieve financial independence. Several years after that first orientation in Kansas City, Daniel and Lauren met again at a company gathering. Both had earned more money than when they started. Both had worked hard. Both had faced unexpected expenses and uncertain markets. But their financial lives looked completely different. Daniel was still searching for the next opportunity that would finally move him ahead. Lauren no longer needed one. Years of ordinary decisions had quietly transformed her finances. She hadn't found a secret investment. She hadn't predicted the market. She hadn't become lucky. She had simply repeated a few sensible habits long enough for time to reward them. Looking back, the difference between them was never a single decision. It was hundreds of small decisions that nobody noticed while they were happening. That's how wealth is usually built. Not through dramatic breakthroughs, not through perfect predictions, but through ordinary actions repeated consistently year after year. Because in the end, lasting wealth is almost never the result of finding the fastest path. It's the result of staying on the right one long enough to let it work.